Moon Knight is the best MCU show of all time. That's all I really have to say. Everything about Moon Knight is done exceptionally well, and succeeds in areas where other MCU shows have failed. Moon Knight is a first for Marvel in many regards. There are a lot of things they cover that have never really been explored in other MCU projects. When Moon Knight was first announced, it didn't really interest me. It was just there. The trailers looked okay, but Jesus Christ, after the first episode, I needed more. Never has a first episode ever piqued my interest more than Moon Knight has. It sets up the entire premise. We get Mark, Steven, we see the main villain, we get a tease at Khonshu, we even see the suit. Throughout the show, we see Mark Spector with the alternate personalities living in his head and this constant switch between them. This is the first time the MCU has ever explored anything like this, and they pull it off really well. The show actually takes the time to explore the root of this disorder and the backstory as to what caused it. That I was not expecting. I thought it was going to be a simple case of, oh, Mark has this disorder, boom, move on. There was a lot more characterization than I thought there would be. They gave us a backstory, they gave us an origin. There isn't a lot left to mystery. That's not to say that I don't have a lot of unanswered questions, but we get a really good start as to who is Mark Spector alongside with his other personalities. For a Marvel show, Moon Knight really sticks to itself. There aren't really that many ties into anything greater, and I think that's something I need to address. A lot, and I mean a lot, of MCU projects are built on cameos and just tying something back into something else, and we don't really have that many projects that stand by themselves. At the base of any project is the story, and if the film or show is built off of just showing other characters, then it gets hard to build a proper story, which really isn't their own. They all venture into some other area of Marvel, and for the most part, Moon Knight remains free of these ties. The show, as it is right now, does not tie into anything greater, and I like that. It's its own thing, it stands by itself. It proves that a show can be self-contained and still really good. It doesn't have to rely on other aspects of Marvel to succeed. A lot of other Marvel shows start these little side stories and side characters, and most of them, actually a lot of them, end up being rushed to the end and don't get time to fully develop. Look at the fake Captain America from Falcon and the Winter Soldier, or Sylvie from Loki, or the girl from Hawkeye. All of these shows have the 6-episode format, and it really does not work. They try too much and don't have the time to fully flesh out these stories. All of these shows would have greatly benefited from a longer episode count like WandaVision had. Unlike all of those shows, this one does not try to expand on any other storylines. The show feels cohesive because it flows. Nothing is dropped from the show, no characters are written off. Everything from the first half of the show links up pretty well with the second half. I see people trying to make the argument that this could have been a movie. There's too much to fully build up and introduce this new character, and it would have felt really rushed in a standard 2, maybe 2.5 hour film. It would have felt rushed because there's no filler in this show, which is pretty rare to come upon. So much of Marvel is cluttered with filler. Just look at all of Hawkeye. Most of that show was just straight filler. Every single episode of Moon Knight has a purpose. An episode never starts and ends in the same exact situation. Oscar Isaac carries the show into the sky. Most of the acting is just him talking to himself. His range of emotion in this one scene alone is more than any acting in Hawkeye. That's not to say this show doesn't have its moments. There are some diabolically cringe scenes. Speaking of Layla, her story is actually developed versus just being a love interest for Mark. They actually explored her backstory, she got a motivation, she actually became a superhero, and she's her own character. She's not tied to Mark just through this romance. Anyways, I do have some issues with the show, mainly the concept of these gods being the most gullible scumbags on planet Earth. So in this scene, Harrow has been accused of trying to unleash this crocodile queen. He simply says no and is on his way. How does that work? How does this make any sense? The gods were going on about how they are here to observe.
Are simply meant to observe.
Okay, if you're observing, then did you not see Harrow talk about trying to unleash Amit multiple times, or him going to her tomb, or him judging people with the scales? Did you just miss all of that? I think this would be the sort of thing you should be observing. Anyway, after he's been accused, he just says no. Why not, like, check what he's been up to, or, like, search his mind? You are gods, right? Is that not in your skill set? Another thing that confused me was the amount of gods and godlike beings that now exist in the MCU. So we have the Asgardian gods. We also have the Egyptian gods now. And in the new Thor trailer, we saw Zeus. So we have Mount Olympus gods. And then we also have Eternals, which I'm pretty sure retconned all of those gods and said they were fake and just based off of them. So what's going on here? I say just retcon Eternals and move on with these gods, because who would really pick Sprite over Khonshu? Also, Moon Knight is Jewish, so Mark is Jewish, and he knows about these Egyptian gods. Does that not shake his beliefs at all, knowing that, like, Egyptian gods are real? Anyways, some of the CGI is also questionable. Like this right here, this is just a CGI model. We get more floating head syndrome, which I always love. There are way more horror elements, which was surprising. Marvel are usually pretty tame with that sort of thing, but I guess not this time. Do more of this. This was very good. I like this. And this little pull away that they do, yeah, do more of that. That's good. One of the greatest fears that I had for this show was that it would turn into CW AIDS. And I think Marvel are finally competent enough to avoid this pitfall. Moon Knight plays with the idea of perspective and living through Steven. We experience these gaps with him, and it's a clever way to approach DID. There are so many of these jump transition shots. Every time they happen, I get a hit of dopamine. There's this mystery as to who is going on these killing sprees when Steven blacks out, and we're just left to assume it's Mark. But as time goes on, we realize that there's another personality inside of Mark, and these teases are finally fulfilled in the post-credit scene. And we get Jake Lockley, and I wonder what actually was the cause of Jake's creation. All of Mark's personalities were created with a purpose. For instance, Steven was created to deal with his childhood trauma. So what caused Jake? The villain, Arthur Harrow, is literally a cult leader. He's got the commune, the brainwashed losers, the glass in his shoes. He's got it all. He also has a real motive. It might be completely outrageous, but it's a genuine motive. He got used and abused by Khonshu. He can relate to the main character in that aspect. I like how you can hear a crunch whenever he walks. The score for all of these shows, but this one especially, is so good. It just hits all the marks. It makes you feel like you have a mental disorder, and it brings out the inner alters inside of you. As I said before, this show plays with the idea of perspective, and throughout it makes you question what is truly real, especially when they enter the psych ward part of the show. It makes you really question everything. There are multiple levels to this moonception. So we have Mark, he gets shot and dies. So we head to a psych ward. Now we're in a session with Dr. Harrow. Then he gets injected, and we're back in the hallway of the psych ward. And then Mark and Steven are separated, and then we look through all of the memories. But then we come back to the psych ward session with Dr. Harrow, and then we go back to the other life with Mark and Steven. But this reality is connected with the hippo girl, and then coming back to life. So what is real? You know what, let's go to the base level. So we're in the session with Dr. Harrow, and we drift off into the dream world with Mark and Steven separated. But that dream world is connected to the hippo girl, and in that world he comes back to life, and that connects to the real world. And then after the final battle and Khonshu releases Steven and Mark, we head back to the psych ward session. So is he dead? Or is the psych ward session the real thing when he really dies? Or is he imagining this fake world? And then he wakes up from a dream. So the last part was a dream, but the rest of it was a dream. So is he Moon Knight at all, or is it all a dream? What makes it even worse is that they reuse set designs from the real world to the psych ward. You see this room? Well, it's the same one from this scene earlier. So was this just a way to come to terms with his personality in his head, or was it actually real? Where most of these shows trip and fall is the finale, and Moon Knight handles the ending really well. We get a huge CGI kaiju final battle, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but we also get a smaller fight. They keep jumping between Steven and Mark throughout the whole fight, and in the end we get another transition, and they just cut the very ending. This was either done on purpose, or they had no idea how to end the fight. Also, Moon Knight can fly? Okay. Having a Jake Lockley blackout transition shot is an interesting way to end this show. Just not showing us the ending. Is it lazy, or is it clever? The divide of Khonshu punishing people after they do something bad versus the crocodile lady killing people before they do something bad because she can see their future, and the fight over choice and free will seems a bit too familiar. It's a recycled idea, but who really cares? Speaking of Khonshu, what a dickhead, oh my god. The mid-credit scene introduces Jake Lockley, and I hear people complaining that he should have been included more, but I disagree. They teased him enough and set him up for season 2. Having Jake Lockley in the story throughout the whole show would have just scrambled it too much, and we wouldn't have enough time to fully develop all the characters. Putting him in the end credit scene was enough. Moon Knight, as it stands, beats all of the other Marvel shows. It's just better. Moon Knight is a 8 out of 10.